My name is Dr. Pete Caravella. I'm a general surgeon out of Las Vegas, Nevada. I've been in Las Vegas for about 16 years now. Born and bred in New Jersey, Essex County. I went to Yale University for college and University of Maryland for medical school. I became a general surgeon and I trained in St. Louis at St. Louis University. October 1 was a pretty tragic day here in Las Vegas. I happened to be on call and was called in to perform some procedures at several local hospitals on October 1, at which time we triaged a bunch of very sick, wounded patients and did our best to take care of as many patients as we could. I do have some affiliation with boxing. I took a short training course to be part of the boxing team for my friend of mine who's an amateur boxer named Gregory James, and therefore eventually became affiliated with some of the bare knuckle boxing in the local area. So the comparison between bare knuckle boxing and traditional boxing and MMA basically comes down to the fact that boxers use boxing gloves which are anywhere between 8, 10, or 12 ounces, and people think boxing gloves are to protect the person getting hit or the punchee, but it's really to protect the puncher. Because if you think about it, if you had it in front of a bag and took your bare hands and hit it, you could hit it for a short amount of time, but if you put on 8 or 10 ounce or 12 ounce padded gloves, you can hit it for a continued period of time. MMA has 4 ounce gloves, and you can hit it for less time than you can hit it with traditional boxing gloves. In bare knuckle boxing, it's exactly what it says, it's bare knuckles. So think about hitting a heavy bag or any kind of wall or punching bag or punching apparatus with bare knuckles. It doesn't take long before your hands get worn out and tired out. So the safety is actually considerably better, in my opinion, in bare knuckle boxing versus traditional 10 or 12 ounce boxing gloves versus the 4 ounce MMA gloves and the extrapolation to bare knuckle boxing. The other thing you need to realize is that in bare knuckle boxing, if you don't strike someone with nearly perfect technique, you can break your 4th or 5th metatarsal very simply, or your thumb, or even your wrist. The knuckles, the bones in the hand are very delicate and small, and they're really just encased by some soft tissue and skin on the hand, and therefore very, very susceptible to damage. How does this separate bare knuckle boxing from MMA? And that's a good question, because in MMA, you can do a knee or a kick. There's some grappling as well. You can choke people. You can torque on their extremities. In bare knuckle boxing, it's essentially a street fight where once you go to the ground, it's over. In MMA, you can grab your opponent by the head or the shoulders, bring their head down to your knee, and thrust your knee up into their face. Again, a difficult move, but with the right timing, you can expel a lot of force and a lot of trauma on someone's head. You can't do that in bare knuckle boxing. It's literally just boxing with bare knuckles. MMA does have the other components of wrestling, grappling, jiu-jitsu, and these flying kicks and so forth, and such as the moves I just talked about, bringing someone's face or forehead down to someone's knee and expending a large amount of force to the cranium. So the hands and the fingers are very delicate, small, fragile bones wrapped in flesh and soft tissue. So they cannot take a lot of repeated force and blows without padding. That's why I said before, the padding in boxing gloves isn't made to protect the person getting hit, it's made to protect the person hitting, which is completely contrary to what most people would think. People think that, well, they have gloves on, so the force of the blow won't hurt as much. And technically that may be true, but again, stand in front of a bag with your bare hand and see how many times you can hit it repeatedly with your bare hand, and then put a boxing glove on. You can go a lot longer with a boxing glove. So just think about the repeated force and the repeated tissue trauma to someone's head with a boxing glove on, where you can go many, many, many more reps on your opponent, theoretically someone's head. So with bare knuckles, you only have a limited amount of times you can hit someone before your hand gives out, or you just can't do it anymore. There's long-term trauma associated with boxing and even some MMA. Again, not a lot of studies, if any, on bare knuckle because it's relatively new, but if you hit someone on the cheek or the forehead with your bare knuckles, you may lacerate their head. A doctor or a surgeon will sew them up, and in 2, 3, 4 weeks, they'll have a scar, but it'll be healed. Whereas if you hit somebody repeatedly in the head with a boxing glove, they're gonna get what's called CTE, or chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or basically permanent brain damage. And it's thought to happen in about 15 to 20% of traditional boxing opponents. So again, the goriness, or the way things look immediately in a bare knuckle fight with the blood and the lacerations, is far less injurious to a boxer who's getting hit repeatedly over and over and over in the head causing damage that you technically can't see because it's inside their cranium, but probably causes much more long-term, long-standing damage called CTE, or chronic traumatic encephalopathy. I wouldn't promote it if I didn't think it was a relatively safe venue and a safe sport. Again, there's risk and there's trauma and there's injuries and complications in every sport. People probably don't realize this, but high school cheerleading is probably one of the most dangerous sports that anyone can actually do, and who would think cheerleading's a problem? Well, when people are getting thrown up 15 and 20 feet in the air and landing wrong, there's a lot of broken bones and injuries. So the way things look when you look at a bare knuckle boxing fight looks very, very seriously. However, I think the long-term effects of bare knuckle boxing versus the long-term effects of traditional boxing and then MMA are going to be far less than will traditional boxing. So for that reason, that itself, I'm really excited about getting involved with the Bare Knuckle Boxing League. I think it's something that is really going to take off in America. I'm excited to be a part of it. My good friend Gregory James is starting up and being part of the Bare Knuckle Fight League, which I think is going to have a lot of traction in the upcoming months to years. And I'm excited that he asked me personally to be part of it in terms of a medical professional and even a fight or a ring doctor. I look forward to it. I think it'll really take off. I think it's going to be an extrapolation of MMA, and I really look forward to it. BareKnuckleFightLeague.com. You can find out a little bit more about us and what we're doing.